because the way things are sucks real hard. Wow, that's amazing. What? Wait, what? How? Why? How? Though? What? Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Joshana here to talk about some friggin' books I have read recently. I have several, and two of them I actually already recorded individual reviews for, but they're both books that are not out yet, so I'm holding off on posting those individual reviews until it's slightly closer to publication time, like a month or so ahead instead. I will briefly talk about my thoughts of them here, though. And I only have one DNF. Wow, that's amazing. The first book I'm going to talk about today is one of the NetGalley e-arcs that I got and read and really enjoyed. A book that does not come out until when? May 23rd. And the book in question is The Battle Drum by Saara El-Arifi, book 2 of the Ending Fire trilogy, book 1 being The Final Strife, which I read last year and fucking loved it. I buddy read this with Roger in January. It is adult fantasy, book 2 of this series. This is an African-inspired world that has people with different blood colors, and there is a caste system that is very brutal. Lots of oppression happening here, torture, death, etc. It's very intense. And in the first book, there are 3 characters that we are following mainly. These 3 women, Sila, Anur, and Hassa. And they know each other in ways that I won't spoil for you. And yeah, they're at various places in this caste system, these 3 women are. And yeah, there are trials that are coming up to determine who the new leaders are going to, the leaders in training are going to be. This happens every 10 years. And things ensue. There's rebellion, talks of rebellion, historically, like past rebellions that have happened, but people still wanting to fight back and do something about the way things are, because the way things are sucks real hard. Sapphic romance, bisexual main character, trans main character, fat main character, and in this world, LGBTQIA plus identities is not a thing. No one is oppressed for that. And really even like sexism also is not really a thing. People are not oppressed for their gender expression, for their sexual identity, none of that. They are oppressed based on blood color, and it's just like xenophobia, kind of, like they see them as very like other. And so yeah, things happen in the first book. I fucking loved it. I read it twice last year, so I was very, very excited for this second book. Snatched up that e-arc. Roger and I buddy read it together, and it was a fun time. This book has so much going on. Oh my god. At the end of the first book, some shit gets revealed where you're like, wait a minute. What the fuck? What the fuck? Like, holy shit. Just like, huge news. Huge news. And like, lots of questions opened up of like, what? Wait, what? How? Why? How? Though? What? And this book explores all of that. The world opens up quite a bit. We learn a lot more about the magic, and it's like blood magic that they do. We learn a lot more about that. We learn a lot more about the history of the world and how things came to be. And we get introduced to a new character, and putting together all of these puzzle pieces was so much fun, like trying to figure out, like, wait a minute, is that who I think it is? And wait, are we now in the past? All of the chapters with our 3 main characters from the first book are like present time, like going along in a chronological timeline. But these chapters with a new character are, you're not sure where you are in the timeline of events. You're not sure where you are in history. You're like, is this present time? Did we go back in time? What's going on here? And it was very intriguing to me personally, and I had so much fun. I had so much fun reading this. More reveals and just things happening. Anur is very annoying. She was very annoying in this, very gullible, good God, this girl is so gullible and dumb. And she annoyed me several times, but I wasn't really expecting that much different from her because she was kind of annoying in the first book as well. Very privileged and, like I said, just very naive and gullible. And I really liked Hassa was like putting Anur in her place several times. Hassa was being like, bitch, no, you cannot possibly be this stupid. What is wrong with you? And I really, really appreciated that. So that's all I really want to say about the plot and everything. Again, I will have a more in-depth individual review coming up, but I fucking loved this. Oh my God, I was so excited for it, but nervous because, you know, debut author, you don't know, was book 1 just kind of a fluke or something? And is book 2 gonna be like middle book syndrome times 1,000 or not? And for me personally, it was not at all. Like 5 stars, loved book 2. And I just, God, I hope she sticks the landing. And I hope book 3 is at least 4 stars. Like, I just, please, please, please. I feel like if book 3 is 5 stars, even though this is only one series that I've read from this author, if all 3 books in the series end up being 5 stars for me, that has to be an auto-buy author, right? We'll see. Very gruesome. Like I said, lots of torture, and like this book in particular, there is some self-mutilation that happens at one point. Not for like self-harming reasons, like mental health reasons or anything. Kind of, sort of mental health, because it's like religious zealotry, cult stuff. We get real deep into some crazy religious cult shit in this book. And there's a scene that made me like out loud. I was like, oh God, ew, oh God, ew. And my boyfriend was like, what? What's the matter? I was like, the book that I'm reading. Oh my God. I had to like look away from the screen, like from reading, because I was just like, oh fuck, she's doing that. She's doing that. Okay, cool. So be warned for that. Also, this book did have some scenes of domestic violence, and also a miscarriage that were like, they weren't super, super graphic, and they weren't long, drawn-out scenes. They were pretty quick scenes, but like a little bit graphic, like a little bit of description of like what was happening on the page. I have experienced some domestic violence in my past. I wasn't like triggered by it or anything like that. It wasn't that intense, but just a warning for anyone who might be very, very sensitive to that. And again, like the miscarriage scene as well, wasn't super long and drawn out, but did have a bit of description of the event that was happening. So a little blood and stuff like that. The next one was also a NetGalley arc of a novella called The Lies of the Ajungo by Moses Ose Utomi. And I really liked this as well. Yay. I didn't love this. It's a novella. Novellas are always a little bit hard for me. I always say this, where, I don't know, it's like such a fine line. I mean, it's probably the case for anyone. Such a fine line of like, I feel like this was a fully fleshed out story that I don't need anything else from. But then like, oh, but I like really liked this and I want more, versus like, this didn't have enough here for me. It was too short. It was too quick. It was too abrupt. You know what I mean? It's like this very murky waters for me to navigate. But I really, really enjoyed this story. And the reason I wanted to read this was just to like get a taste for this author's like writing and see if I liked it. And I did. And it's one of those things where like, I liked this well enough. I hope they will do a full-length novel at some point, because I would definitely want to read that. It's adult fantasy. This is like a kind of Arabian or African inspired world. It felt very desert, very like Sahara desert kind of thing, with like oases, mirages and things. And it was really, really cool though. It was a really cool story. And it reads kind of like a folk tale being told, has that kind of tone to it, that vibe to it. And it's this place where there is no water. This city has like no fucking water whatsoever. People are dying all the time. And they send children out to try to like be a hero and find water or like find rescue for them every now and then, but they never come back. They die in the desert. And then this one kid, he's like, no, it's me, I'm gonna do it. And we go from there. And like I said, it's very, very interesting. Very, very interesting story. And I liked it quite a bit. I initially gave it 3.75 stars, but I actually bumped it up to 4 because it was one of those where the more I sat with it, the more I was like, no, I did really, really like that. I do wish it was a full-length novel, but then I'm like, that's not really a detriment to it. You know what I mean? I just didn't get super, super connected to the characters. And like, because I have read novellas before where I do get really connected to the characters, I know it's possible. You know what I mean? And I just think it takes like that very particular author, that very particular writing style. And this wasn't a bad writing style at all. It was very good. Like I would like to read more from this author. The themes and how he wove it all together was really, really cool. Like watching the story unfold. So I ended up giving it 4 stars, a solid 4 stars. And that one actually is also a newer release. That, when is it coming out? Or did it come out now? No, March 21st is when The Lies of the Ajungo comes out, March 21st. Next, I picked up Carolina Built by Kianna Alexander, I think is the author's name. And I did own this. I listened to it mostly on audio, though. I did have the physical copy, but I listened to it on audio. And I didn't love it like I thought I was going to. This is historical fiction based on a real woman who was a real estate magnate back in the day. But yeah, she was born into slavery in the United States and at 9 years old was emancipated finally. So now she is a free woman. Her family is free. She gets married and basically doesn't ever want to be beholden to anyone ever again. Does not want to be beholden to any man, specifically white men, white people, but anyone. She just wants to be a free and independent woman who doesn't need anybody. So she starts purchasing real estate. She's very smart. And I was really, really intrigued by this. And I guess I think I was just expecting something slightly different from this. I'm not mad that I read it. I'm not like, oh God, what a waste of time or anything like that. It was just so much more like slice of life than I thought it was going to be. It was more focused on her personal stuff going on in her marriage and like the difficulties of, you know, even now there are men who still are like, a woman's place is taking care of her husband and her kids. Back then, that was very much the accepted norm. So a woman going against that and like working, and she still was having children, but like she wasn't the sole caretaker of the kids, and she still would go out and like work and buy property that was in her name and stuff like that. And her husband feeling like emasculated basically, and just those were like more of what we were focusing on, those issues. And honestly, I feel like this could have been shorter too because there were so many scenes where we were just getting like details of her daily minutia. Just she's making some dinner and we're getting like very excruciating details about opening this cupboard that was made of whatever wood and pulling out whatever and doing this and that and grabbing that ingredient from the left cupboard and but like to no, like for no real reason, we were getting all of this detail about these mundane daily tasks. Like it was a lot of that where I was like, okay, is this necessary though? And the stuff with like her personal life was interesting enough, I suppose, but again, I think I was just expecting something different. I was expecting it to focus more on like business stuff. I guess I was expecting there to be like more drama on the business side, where there really wasn't all that much, and not like hardship and like trauma, but just like, ooh, business deals drama with that. Like I was expecting there to be like her being like this ruthless businesswoman and like people trying to fuck her over, but she's smarter than them and like does this and that. And I guess I was expecting more of that kind of stuff, and there wasn't really. Like she just was like, oh, buying property and here we go, and now she's gonna do this with that property and she's gonna do that, and she's got to go get rent from that person who like rents space at her property, and her husband feels some kind of way about it, and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it just kind of was like, oh, okay. Well, again, not bad or anything like that, and perfectly fine story. She's an interesting woman. I just think it like kind of, I don't want to say it was boring, but like there were parts that were boring, where I was like, I think we could have cut it down to have less of this like mundane daily minutia that like ended up making it feel kind of boring, you know? And like, had I gone into it knowing that it was gonna be a little bit more slow and just a bit more slice of life, maybe I would have felt differently about it. So if you're intrigued at all with the story, just go into it knowing that, and maybe you'll enjoy it more. Very slow pace though. And I ended up giving this 3 stars. Very middle of the road. And I will briefly talk about the DNF that I had this go around, and that is, sadly, the EOS Key or EOS Key by DM Lewry. This is a self-published paranormal romance, contemporary romance, and I liked it well enough, and I read like a lot of it. Let me see. Yeah, I got 74% of the way into this, and I liked these characters well enough, and I liked the story well enough, and the world was cool, the like vampire lore and whatnot. There's werewolves in here too, and witches. I just wasn't really bought into the romance, and there were some kind of cheesy dialogue moments that happened a few times. I was kind of like, okay. But then towards the last half, it just started ramping up a lot with like the cheesy dialogue, and in particular with like the kind of villainous characters. One in particular just kept like, oh, I was just like, okay, I get it. You're like a mustache twirling, mwahaha. Like, just, I was getting, it was a little too much. It was a little too much. And because I just wasn't bought in, like I said, I was like reading it pretty quickly enough, I guess. And I was just like, okay, that's cool, cool, cool. Like, what's going to happen? But I didn't care that much about the romance. And then these things kept happening. And like I said, it just started to ramp up to where I was like, I don't care. I think I would definitely still recommend this for people though. If you really enjoy, if you are a paranormal romance reader, I would say pick this up for sure. And like contemporary romance, contemporary paranormal romance, whatever, urban fantasy romance, whatever you want to call it, I would say check this out, pick it up, because like there wasn't anything horribly bad or wrong. I got 74% of the way through. I just didn't care enough. It was one of those situations of just like, meh, I'm good. I don't care. If you have read any of these, let me know. I mean, most of them are like e-arcs and like arcs, so maybe not, but if you're intrigued by any of them, or if you plan on reading any of them when they come out, or the ones that have been published, if you're interested, let me know. Like, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined and you have not already. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.